So, one of the things that I had to do while I was at school was work. Now, I don't want to say I had to do it cuz really I didn't, but I really didn't want to quit my job. So, I was working at a grocery store. I had started working there in 2011. And I stopped. Unfortunately, the store was shut down in 2016, fall of 2016, which was both a blessing and a curse. Um, I didn't have any more income, just personal income. I was funding, more of kind of my entertainment, but I was also, funding other things too that were, important that I needed to live and survive. But at the same time, it was also a blessing. I could definitely tell the reasons why my academic performance was being hindered was because I was working so much. Usually I was working 24 to 26 hours a week. And when you're in engineering school, it's full on. You have to devote almost all your time to studying, to applying yourself, to revisiting old concepts and making sure you've mastered them before moving on to the next one. And I didn't do that initially. Work, just took an equal priority. But it took me long enough to, realize that after I got laid off that I didn't need the job. I fortunately it was right before I graduated. Sorry to say it took me that long to realize I needed to, quit that job and just study school, but after I did, my grades went up. I was able to apply myself. And really, when that did happen, all I did was study. Saturdays, woke up at 10 a.m., then I stopped at about 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. I literally just did school. Not to say breaks are very important. You can burn yourself out. And that's one thing I would, recommend against. Do not overstudy. And you can overstudy in engineering. It is very possible. Breaks are very important. They allow the material that you've absorbed to retain in your brain. Usually my break days were Sundays, which is good because I go to church in the mornings. And for the rest of the day, I would either just hang out with friends or my girlfriend or, just hang out with my family and just, spend time with them with what I have left because I knew, Lord willing, and He did provide that I was going to have a career. And it may not necessarily be somewhere close to Greenville, North Carolina. In fact, it didn't. It was 5 hours away in Greenville, South Carolina, funny enough. That's one of the things that's very important when going to engineering school. Number one, you got to apply yourself. You always got to apply yourself and make that one of the most important priorities. Number two, don't overstudy because you can do it and it's not good for you. It's not healthy. And number three, don't try to do too many things at once. And what I mean by that is don't try to hang out with your friends all the time. Don't try to party all the time. Don't try to work all the time. Just schedule out your time accordingly. You have X amount and then each amount can only be divided a certain way. So don't make it 1.5 times X. Your body literally can't accommodate for all that. You'll get overworked, you'll get overburdened, and it can lead to real mental health problems and even physical health problems. If you work too much, you'll get sick. You need your sleep. Definitely sleep is not something you can cut out, if you try to study for engineering running on 3 or 4 hours of sleep, it's not going to cut it. You're not going to remember things. You're just going to memorize things. So you really got to be able to space yourself out and prioritize what's important. Certainly there are certain situations where if you have a family, if you're raising kids, they take priority. Of course they do. But that's why some people took longer career paths. Maybe you need 5 years or 6 years, and that's okay. That's fine. I had friends that did that, and no one. I don't look down on them for taking extra long time in school. If you have to do that, that's absolutely fine. There's no harm in taking extra long at school. Just it might cost a little more. But in the end, you're still going to achieve the same thing, and even that's going to show an employer later on, this person worked while they were supporting their family. And if that's the case, that looks really good. It shows that, employers care that you care about the company. They want to know that you're going to devote, all your engineering work to them. But at the same time, they don't want an obsessive employee who's going to stay there over hours, who's going to be overworking and going to be non-sociable. Because number one, you're not going to fit into the culture of the company. Number two, you're not going to show up to work with a healthy being, or be a person that's good to work around. Engineers aren't just people that type at desks and just hand in papers to your boss and do lab reports all day. They're sociable people, and despite what media or the entertainment depicts engineers as, especially in my line of work, I talk with people every day, sometimes even face to face, sometimes directly with end users, and that's very important to do that. You see the people that you affect with the things you developed and the procedures you develop. Balancing out school, work, it's very important. And later on the road, if I want to, I might end up exploring a topic that's more relevant to a specific period in school, or a specific subject maybe, or how to balance out your time. I might go into that later on. The last thing that I want to talk about is relationships. Now, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships between your boyfriend or your girlfriend. I'm talking about your relationships with everyone, because you could be sitting next to the next CEO of dynamic engineering group. You look over to the left, and that guy's he's in the fraternity, he's in Delta Kappa Epsilon or something like that, and he's listening to music, got his head asleep on his desk while the teachers, but you don't know. I mean, who knows? That guy could turn his life around. He could apply himself, and then he could bust his chops to really apply himself, and he becomes the new CEO. So what I'm getting at is, you really, really have to value the relationships that you form in school. Later down the road, they can become good connections. Same thing with your professors. It goes a long way to go up to the professor on the very first day of class and introduce yourself, make sure he puts a name to a face. That can make not only the difference between, a letter grade, it can make the difference between a job. Depending on where you go to school, your capstone advisor may or may not give you a recommendation. Certainly mine offered to, and it would have been nice to have on my application, but I had already gotten a job at that point. But the fact that after we completed our project and he told me he would write me a letter of recommendation, that blew my mind. Keeping in a good relationship with the capstone professor, and all the professors and all your students that you're with, is very important. Now, another important aspect during school to keep in mind is that you need to have good relationships with your family and your friends. Depending on where you get your job, you may end up moving far away. Like in my case, I did. Unfortunately for me, not to say we didn't leave on bad terms, but my family and friends, I didn't really communicate with them as much as first. Looking back, I wish that I did, but fortunately I didn't. And it hurt, because later down the road, certain things happen, and I'll get into that. But the next, thing that you might want to consider is getting in a relationship with another man or woman while you're in school. Certainly that's one of the prime locations and times to, find someone like that, is during college. And I met someone, I really, really liked her, and we loved each other. Unfortunately, down the road, since I took this job down here in Greenville, South Carolina, and she was doing her thing up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, it didn't work out. Long distance relationships are hard. They're not very healthy, especially if you have to do them over an extended period of time. So be careful with what you do. Make sure that when you're dating around, and especially don't let it take priority over your school, because that's the whole reason you're there in the first place. Now, I'm not saying, just to completely divulge in your schoolwork and, cut everything out. Certainly there's time to, form relationships and things like that. But, you got to be careful. You don't want someone getting hurt. You don't want to hurt yourself. And if you're not careful, you might. And especially if something like that happens where, you're working over a long distance relationship and it doesn't work out, you need the support of your friends and family. It's very important that you do. So, if you don't have that support, if you left on bad terms, or you don't keep in good communication with your friends and family, it's going to sting because you don't really have someone to talk to on a level where, you've been talking with them a while and you can update them on current events. Right now, you're thinking, oh, I have a perfect relationship with my friends and family. We hang out all the time. Well, if you move away, make sure you just keep that relationship the same. Because if you don't, certain things can't happen. But as long as you keep your relationship with your friends and your family in good stance, it will have a definite impact on your life, a very good impact on your life. That brings us to now. I came out of school, I keep in good communication with my friends and my family. I'm continuously trying to improve myself. I'm a huge believer in continuous education. And, I feel good about the progress that I've made so far. I'm an engineer in a really, really good company with a really good culture. And the amount of work that I put into my school definitely has had an amount on the impact that I've had on my job. I go to work with the same kind of aptitude and application that I went in with school, and it definitely shows. I get a lot of recognition for the work that I do, and I appreciate that, and it really inspires me to go on. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it right here, and that's only because I could spend forever talking about the things you can do in school and in work, and what you're doing right now to help yourself become a better engineer, or just better relationships as you go on. But really, what I'm here to do is just talk about the average life of an engineer, and that's what I consider myself. And hopefully, you can gain something from watching these videos as I go on. But really, I just kind of want to explain what it's all like. I might give informational videos or procedure videos on certain topics that will come up, and they will. Trust me, they will. But right now, I just wanted to give you a background of my life and what led me to be an engineer, and everything that led up to that. So, next video, I'm not sure when I will post it. Usually, not a lot happens in a single day in a life. I am doing Snapchat stories, so I will be updating you very soon on when you can follow those. But as of right now, I'll upload videos when I can, hopefully, more often than later. But for right now, just wanted to give you the background of my life, which I've done. And in the meantime, happy engineering. If you're in school, keep working hard. If you're a current engineer, hang in there. We're improving the world. Evan, out.